Good morning. We'll call the meeting of the Kent County Board of Commissioners to order, and I will ask Madam Clerk to please call the roll.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Commissioners Morse.
Here.
Merchant.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Hildenbrand.
Here.
Steck.
Here.
Ponstein.
Here.
Vice Chair Burrow.
Here.
Commissioners Coleman.
Here.
Halsted.
Here.
Teal.
Here.
Sparks. McLeod.
Here.
Hennessy. Oliver King.
Here.
LeGrand. Womack.
Here.
Faber.
Here.
Pakla.
Here.
Morales.
Here.
Bujak.
Present.
Chair Green.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 members present, 3 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will now call on Commissioner Ponstein to lead us in the invocation.
Thank you, Chair Ben Green. It's always nice to follow the previous invocation, which this time was done by Commissioner Steck. It gives the next person giving it a lot of leeway and a lot of time. So hopefully mine is not that long. But I was speaking with Commissioner Womack prior, and there was something that I was going to put in this, and I deleted it for time. And it was about a time when I was in New Orleans, had an opportunity to eat at Dookie Chase's place, had a fantastic meal, and the waitress came out and said, "How was everything? How was the meal?" and all of that. And it was fantastic. The only thing that would be better if Leah Chase would walk out of that kitchen and come out and say hi. And she went to me and said that, "I don't know if I can do that, but if you're willing to get up, I know she would love to talk to you, but you have to come back into the kitchen." And if you know anything about her restaurant with her husband hosted civil rights leaders, Martin Luther King, dignitaries, presidents have come through those doors. And one time Tip O'Neill came in, and this says a lot about where we're at today. Leah Chase asked him, when did it all go wrong? And her response to that, or his response was, he goes, "Well, we're not talking anymore. We're yelling, accusations, threats." And Leah stopped him. She said, "You know what you need? All you need is just a big bowl of gumbo. And you got to feed everyone first, because when people eat, they're happy. And once they're happy, you can begin that conversation." So I don't have that big bowl of gumbo. You can stop by my house. Sometimes I can make one up for you. But I just want to start by, I appreciated Commissioner Steck's, remarks, because it does explain that there's a reason we can do this. And hopefully I don't let that standard down anything. So the one thing that struck me the most is invocation, but we're basically, I think, praying. And I've thought about that a lot for the past few weeks. And my question goes, does God have a set way that we pray, a way that he expects each of us to follow? I mean, we pray for wisdom, pray for hope, healing, forgiveness, the end of wars, end of violence, and many other things. I think if I had a prayer today and I asked him right now, when did it all go wrong? And I think his response to us would be, "I didn't know I made it that hard for people to get along when I created this world." And I believe a lot of people pray, but they pray in different ways. Some pray through the witness of their lives, through the work they do, the friendships they have, and the love of other people, and that love that they receive from those people. If there's more than just prayer, then what do we look to? And I think we don't have to look any further than Matthew 25:40. It says it very plainly, and it's repeated all through Scripture. "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me." So unlike the communities of most modern human history, today's secular community is typically not defined by place, work, or ancestry. It's a highly mobile, low commitment, non-local, and often virtual. Our new savior seems to be artificial intelligence, which will leave us far behind when it comes to human interaction and the interaction with those around us. Problems of loneliness and meaningless will be prevalent and will consume us. What we need to create is a community in which it's easier for people to do good for each other and build friendships. So my prayer today is this: Father God, bless everyone in this room, this city, this county, and all those that have been forgotten or in need. Our leaders know that their goals should not be meeting needs, but friendship and kindness, a goal of a different kind of community. A community where we don't drive the needy or at risk into a place we find suitable. We instead help them survive in places they find suitable and have a shared commitment that is not for them, but a shared commitment for all of us. And most of all, grant wisdom that our leaders here today know they really only love you, God, as much as they love the person they love the least. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Ponstein. I don't know who gives the next invocation, but you got a streak of two pretty good ones here, so big shoes to fill on the next one up.
I think I'm going to be absent.
Is it you? Oh, boy, yeah. It'll be a downgrade if it's Vice Chair Burrow. All right, we will move on to agenda item number 5, which is public comment related only to the agenda action items. You have up to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address and which agenda item you are public commenting on. Thank you.
How y'all doing? I'm speaking on the West Michigan Sports Commission, obviously, because the West Michigan Sports Commission has funded and supported D. Jones' first esports competition in the hood, where I gave out $1,000 doing the NBA 2K, educating people on green energy and infrastructure and banking and social issues and politics and how these social issues affect the community. That was a good thing that the West Michigan Sports Commission has done. Also, I just did these esports activations and brought a $32 billion company, Epic Games, to educate our public school system. And let me get that bit. You feel me? And then as I educated the school district and Epic Games educated the students on game design, it was a cool opportunity because I also connected my good friends from the West Michigan Sports Commission to a game publishing company that I work for in North Carolina, and they're actually going to be on Fortnite. Well, whoever thought that the West Michigan Sports Commission logo would be on Fortnite, with having kids all across the globe on the island that we already showed Epic Games, which the headquarters in North Carolina. Y'all cannot do nothing with D. Jones, as they like to say. D. Jones is going to do very beautiful things with West Michigan Sports Commission. Obviously, too, they bought me that PS5 in that light blue controller that's like the same color that the United Nations, which I have my United Nations pen that I bought while I was there at the headquarters, to keep putting out that positive universal energy, because change needs to happen all across the globe, and I believe that can happen through sports, because sports brings people together. It also divides people when people's teams loses, but hey, that's another thing. You got to learn how to control your feelings with these sports and stuff like that, because there's other social issues that needs to be handled. And so very thankful, because as I was on ABC 13 educating the public school system, which I know that the bosses and Van Andels and West Michigan Policy Forum does some unethical things to try to act like they care about public education, but they don't. I'm going to keep holding those people accountable, because I love the community, I love public education, and I love our society to be fair, just, and equitable. And I believe through sports, through esports, that this can happen, that you can show billionaires in their own spaces in their city, that you can do things fair, just, and equitably. And as I was on ABC 13 with that PS5 that the West Michigan Sports Commission bought me, they bought me 2 PS5s, but I had actually one of the PS5s there. That PS5 that was on the background with that $32 billion company that educated the public school system that aligns with the United Nations goal to have lesson plans, to have cool lesson plans and educational tools that actually changes communities, school districts, countries. It's going to happen. I'm not going to let up on you guys. I'm not going to apologize for anything I said, nothing. I'm just going to change the education system. I'd just like for you guys to continuously fund in the West Michigan Sports Commission because I'm doing the good ethical things that other people would never do, that politicians would never stand up and do. I already know y'all don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Anybody else for public comment related to agenda items only? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the consent agenda. I will call on Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Green. I move the consent agenda for today's date.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Teal. Any discussion? Seeing none, I ask Madam Clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt the consent agenda, Commissioners Morse,
Yes.
Merchant, DeBoer, Hildenbrand,
Yes.
Steck, Ponstein, Vice Chair Burrow.
Yes.
Commissioners Coleman,
Yes.
Halsted, Teal, Sparks, McLeod,
Yes.
Hennessy, Oliver King, LeGrand,
Yes.
Womack,
Yes.
Faber, Pakla,
Yes.
Morales, Bujak,
Yes.
Chair Green.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. The consent agenda is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 7, which is resolutions, and for 7A, I will call on Minority Vice Chair McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 32 of today's date, the Walk for Warmth Special Project Fund Appropriation FY '25.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Sparks. Questions, comments, or discussion? Okay, seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries and the resolution is adopted. We'll move on to agenda item 7B, and I will call on Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair Green. I move approval of Resolution 33 of today's date, coming from the Emmons Lake Drainage District Bond recommendation from the Drain Commissioner.
Thank you. Supported by Commissioner Bujak. Questions, comments, or discussion on 7B? Okay. Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 33, Commissioners Morse, Merchant, DeBoer, Hildenbrand,
Yes.
Steck,
Yes.
Ponstein, Vice Chair Burrow,
Yes.
Commissioners Coleman,
Yes.
Halsted,
Yes.
Teal, Sparks, McLeod,
Yes.
Hennessy, Oliver King, LeGrand,
Yes.
Womack,
Yes.
Faber, Pakla,
Yes.
Morales, Bujak,
Yes.
Chair Green.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 33 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 7C, and I will call on Commissioner Oliver King.
Thank you, Chair Green. I move for the adoption of Resolution 34, Edmonds Lake and Cascade Drain at Large Appropriation.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Supported again by Commissioner Bujak.
That was Womack.
Commissioner
I
Womack.
was just doing his voice.
He's my spokesman on that.
I don't know if there's a proxy there or, okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there questions, comments, or discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, this is again a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 34, Commissioners Morse, Merchant, DeBoer, Hildenbrand,
Yes.
Steck,
Yes.
Ponstein, Vice Chair Burrow.
Yes.
Commissioners Coleman,
Yes.
Halsted,
Yes.
Teal, Sparks, McLeod,
Yes.
Hennessy, Oliver King, LeGrand,
Yes.
Womack,
Yes.
Faber, Pakla,
Yes.
Morales, Bujak, Chair Green.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 34 is adopted.
thank you. We'll move to item 7D, and I will call on Commissioner Halsted.
I move to approve Resolution 35 of today's date for the Myers Sports Complex Expansion Project.
Thank you. Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Teal. And before questions, comments, and discussion, I'll have Al give a little background on this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, this item comes from discussions that have been held with the Sports Commission over the past couple of years. As you know, they have their major campaign nearly funded, and the county did allocate funds, ARPA funds at the time, for $1 million to help pay for the new championship softball field, more flexible use diamonds, amateur baseball and softball facilities, pickleball courts, and new amenities. So they did come, that project did go over budget due to inflation and everything else going in the world post-COVID. And so I did recommend to finance that we allocate $358,000 from the Special Projects Fund. Subsequently, I did have a number of conversations. There were people who felt like it was an arbitrary recommendation because the money, even though it is not ARPA money anymore, it did have its roots as ARPA money. And you'll recall that the board took several actions. I think it was 4, and then finally a 5th one in January. As we heard rumors that there may be clawbacks from the feds, we double, triple, quadruple protected the money from being taken back. And ultimately, once it's put in the Special Projects Fund, it really isn't ARPA money, it's county money in a Special Projects Fund. And so why not, so that's why we didn't recommend having a process and allowing others who received ARPA funds to apply for the funding, although this news has been out there for a month and we have not been contacted by anyone else either. And I would also like to say that the other reason the recommendation is unique, I think, from other organizations the county funded, is that the Sports Commission is literally a child of the county. It was the county, along with the private nonprofit sector partners, that created the Sports Commission. For its first 5 years of existence, the general fund contributed annually to the operations of the Sports Commission. And then the county negotiated with Experience Grand Rapids to increase the amount of excise tax allocation to the Experience Grand Rapids, so that they would then pick up the operating costs and relieve the general fund of that obligation. A little later down the road, the county sold land that it had acquired in the mid-'70s at the mid-1970s price to the Sports Commission so that they could have an expanded facility there. And then even later, a few years down the road after that, the county allocated $400,000 to the Sports Commission to reimburse the $400,000 costs of the property. So since the Sports Commission's inception, it is something that the county has, we certainly haven't had a line in the budget all those years, but we do tend to help out at times when help is needed. Also, we view the Sports Commission as an investment because of the beds and heads, as we like to say, or the hotel rooms that are sold, which goes right to the revenue, the excise tax, the hotel motel tax revenue. And literally this project will bring in another couple hundred families a year, and will help with the other projects, funding the other projects that we've stood up. And it really does serve the youth of the community and even beyond. So those are the reasons why. I guess, you know, those will decide whether that's arbitrary or not. Certainly I understand that. But I just wanted to let you know what my rationale was for bringing this forward.
Okay, thanks, Al. Questions, comments, discussion? Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. Is there, I didn't see in the action request a breakdown between what is covering the cost overruns from the ARPA approved project and what is just donating to their capital campaign?
The $358,000 equals the cost overrun. And then there'll still be some room where they still need to raise some more money to finish the campaign.
So this is not for the campaign, this is just for the overrun on the construction?
Even the $1 million that we contributed was for the campaign, so it's all underneath the umbrella of the campaign. But this amount equals the amount, the improvements were $1,358,000 that we funded, the synthetic field. And so that's what this is going for. We do have Mike
I
Gusweiler
find
here
it very
from the.
confusing.
Mike, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chair Green, thank you, Administrator Vandenberg. Appreciate what you spoke of with regard to the West Michigan Sports Commission. It's a pleasure to be here. To answer that question directly, it's an ongoing campaign. We're still fundraising. We are at 13.1 million. The project stands at 13.5. We backed off of 14 million because of where we stand with regard to fundraising. There are components that we'd love to put back into it. But that being said, the reporting back through the ARPA process requires us to identify and be reimbursed with expenditures to date. What I identified with Administrator Vandenberg is we had cost overruns with that specific piece of the project that we were reporting back through the ARPA process. Those cost overruns were due to inflation, but also very wet conditions that required heavy equipment and other materials to be combined. So in the order of asking for these additional dollars, it is to cover and close out that reporting to ARPA for that piece of the project.
Okay, so there was no donation to the campaign, it really was just an ARPA project? Or did some money go directly to the campaign?
$1 million
and not towards
was, the 33 projects that the board approved for ARPA projects did include $1 million for the campaign. Back in 2022, when the allocations were
And there
made.
was no dollar attached, what was the dollar amount then that was attached to the project? Or
The-
is there no differentiation?
The project was, the $1 million was to pay for the synthetic field. That was what the request or application was for, specifically.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner LeGrand. Others, questions, comments, discussion? Commissioner Faber.
Thank you. So I am critical of this process for allocating these funds. This accounts for 86% of the funds that are in this undesignated ARPA Special Projects Fund. In the memo we received, it stated that the remaining 14% would go to other county projects. I didn't hear in any of the discussion at the Finance Committee what the formal outreach was to the other ARPA-funded projects or even county departments about how these funds might be helpful to them. I didn't see any feedback was received or how this specific request actually came about. I would have preferred to see a whole list of potentially funded projects and then some explanation about why certain county or partner projects were being recommended for funding. Furthermore, if some of the logic for this request is that it puts more heads in beds, then I think it's appropriate to make this request using the lodging excise tax. Sports complexes are specifically called out in House Bill 5048, which was the public act that expanded that lodging excise tax in 2023. It states that sports complexes are eligible for financing, acquisition, construction, improvement, enlargement, repair, or maintenance. I think in general, whenever possible, we should be using these types of dedicated funding streams first because they aren't available to other departments or partners. For example, when we looked at the CIP project, we asked, could this be used for parks? And the answer was no, that's not an eligible use. So this would be a good example of how we can shift something onto that fund that has dedicated funding source so that we can free up money for these other projects which have gone through this vetting process. Maybe that's being looked at. Again, I didn't see anything in the request that outlined the overall funding strategy for the sports complex, what happens if the funding isn't secure, and how other partners are contributing to this project. For these reasons, I am going to be a no vote.
Thank you, Commissioner. Others? Commissioner Pakla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Al, I have a question on the use of this unrestricted fund that we scooted these ARPA dollars into. The 14% that Commissioner Faber just mentioned, can that be used for any county identified projects? I mean, are there restrictions on that?
It could.
Okay. And so then, as we think about this pot of dollars, the whole thing, including the $358,000 that is recommended to go to the Sports Commission, could be used for any project, including CIP, including operational costs, including all of those potential buckets. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I think, I want to say first, Mike, thanks for being here. I really appreciate the work that the Sports Commission does. I think you do fantastic work for West Michigan. I do struggle a little bit with the fact that the Sports Commission is getting wrapped up in this, because I think it's putting some undue tension on what is otherwise a fantastic resource for West Michigan. You know, my kids are too young to take advantage of the formal play fields there, but I think at some point in time they'll be up there, so I'm really excited about that. You know, I think it's a struggle when we talk about the transparency of the process. I don't know that I ever felt that this decision was arbitrary, but I do feel as though the process itself has not been as transparent as I would have liked, especially when we have months and months of lead up when we're talking about capital improvement plans, and we have conversations and work sessions and budget, you know, documents sitting in front of us where we are literally trying to figure out, should we purchase a playground or should we purchase some equipment for a different department, right? And here we have a bucket of funding that is effectively unrestricted for county use, and we have not had that opportunity to think through what is the best use of those dollars that have the most impact for a county. When we go through that CIP process, we sit down and we say, are there other eligible funds that are useful for this particular request? I mean, we literally have a column in that spreadsheet that says general fund application, other funds, grants, et cetera, right? That conversation's not happening here. There are other funds that are likely eligible for this use that we could be looking at. But instead of having that conversation and maybe coming to the same conclusion that this is the best use for these $358,000, we've sort of skipped that whole conversation, and we've ended in this place where we are making a recommendation without having a significant amount of options available to us. I don't know that I can say this is not the best use for those dollars, because again, I really appreciate the work that the Sports Commission is doing, and I appreciate the long-term economic benefit of the existence of the Sports Commission and the work that you do here. But I can't with full confidence say that this is the best use of these dollars. And so I really struggle with this conversation today. I'm not opposed to using those dollars, but I am struggling with the process.
Thank you. Others? Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My mind just, goes back to the CARES Act process. I know Commissioner Womack was very involved in that, and then the ARPA process, and immediate past Chair Steck, and now State Representative Wooden, bore the brunt of, all the efforts involved in, I think, the most, open and transparent use of those dollars, in aggregate that probably happened in the entire country. So I just want to make sure that point's raised. Like, this is a very minor, footnote in the larger process on allocating all of these federal dollars that came our way. I do just want to make sure that I'm understanding. So, Administrator Vanderburg, I think what I heard you say is this is going to the capital campaign in the sense that that's like the funding mechanism, but as far as the project, the initial allocation was $1 million. This allocation is 300 and something.
58, yeah.
358, and those combined are the total cost for this particular project that we funded.
For the synthetic field, the project that we funded, that's the cost of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Womack.
Yes, as we look at these capital resources that we have available, how do other entities and municipalities and neighborhoods, would they know that they might be eligible for these? Because we see that the sports complex has stepped forward to request what they say is 86% of those resources, how would anyone else even know that those resources were there and they could apply? Because I know we had a great partnership with our West Michigan Sports Complex, the Myers Sports Complex. But since it's open to all of Kent County, how would others have?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'll say that the Sports Commission didn't know that $417,000 was available.
Okay.
Because the 417 was a result, well, 200,000 of it was money not spent with Guidehouse, which was a consultant the county chose to help oversee the distribution of the ARPA funds. In fact, the reason for that is Josh Spencer came aboard and did the work on staff and saved us that money. And other smaller things like that, the money wasn't spent on. And so at the point it went into a special projects fund, it ceased to be ARPA money. And so we wouldn't have, in my opinion, gone through a process of asking the 33 projects to, if they needed more money. And I will say that Josh Spencer has been a regular contact with all the projects and has a good assessment of where they're at. And so, again, the thinking was that the Sports Commission is tightly aligned and created by the county, and there is a pattern of investment over the years, and so that's why it made sense to us.
Okay, thank you. And if you receive these funds, how close will you be, and how do you plan to finish raising the capital to finish this, and when will we be able to see this great synthetic field?
Yeah, well, thanks, Commissioner Womack. The synthetic field is in play. It has been for this past year. Aquinas College plays up there. We have many county residents that utilize that facility, so it is a community asset. And then our goal is to drive the economy through bringing visitors in. So it is in play. We've allocated those dollars out of the capital campaign right now. We're just asking for support to replace those dollars as we continue to fundraise. So it will bring us close to the project as it stands right now. But as I said, there are things that we run into working with Kent County Road Commission and our soil erosion permit. We had heavy rains in early April, washed some soil into the Merrill Trails. We had to clean that up and redesign in engineering costs to look at our stormwater drainage. And so there are unexpected things that certainly come up, and that's what happened specific to this part of the project. So it's ongoing. As I said, we continue to fundraise, but this certainly is a huge help to get this over the finish line. Our anticipation, this is a full construction year. We're adding parity and equity to the complex. We have people coming from across the country, filling our hotels and our restaurants, and adding back to that county lodging tax. So we will be full in play in 2026 and look forward to the work that we've been doing. And I provided a document to the administrator's office that shows over our 18-year span, we've had continued growth each and every year, and about $3.5 million back to the county lodging tax. We anticipate that will keep growing. So it is an investment. It is something that we're proud of and we want to continue to do. On the other hand, it adds to the vibrancy and health and wellness of our community. We want to continue that aspect as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for all your work on this and making us proud in West Michigan. I do have a question. On Tuesday during the Finance Committee meeting, there was a mention of a significant donation from Experience GR. Did you give us the amount yet, or is that still something we can't disclose?
I can disclose offline if you'd like to know the amount. They asked us to keep it anonymous. Experience Grand Rapids has their operations. They have their board and their functionality of how they disperse and use their dollars. And it's not typically to facilities, but it was significant. We have over 40 different donors from $1,000 to $3 million. And certainly they fall on the higher end, and they've been strong partners and continue to be strong partners in what we're doing. They see the benefit. They have a hotel advisory committee that also pushed this because we were created to look at the outlying communities, the outlying hotels that most of our travelers will go and utilize and fill those hotels. And they had a voice in how to use some of those dollars, and they recommended they invest in this campaign, and we're very appreciative, and, it's certainly helped offset, again, the public-private partnership that we have.
So it's not so it's not included in the amount that you needed here. It's used for something else with the fields.
No, the whole project is included in this right now. It stands at $13.5 million. Again, I said we backed off of a $14 million goal because of where fundraising stands to date. And so, yes, it's included in what we've raised to date of $13.1 million.
Minority Vice Chair McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you again. I'd like to reiterate everything that my colleagues have said so far. We do appreciate the work that the West Michigan Sports Commission is doing, and I feel like you all are just kind of caught in this struggle that we're having of process versus product. Sure. It's not a personal attack on the work that you're doing. I think that I will continue to reiterate that as Commissioner Pakla mentioned, there might have been the same result had we, as commissioners, been given the opportunity to think about all of the projects that are out there that were funded by these dollars initially, and where they're at, and what they might need to finish up the work that we approve for them to do from the ARPA dollars. And so I want to make it clear that my concern is not arbitrary. It is not something that was just that was just put forward as causing a roadblock. It is concern about the process, and I will continue to reiterate that we said that these dollars were going to be used based on how we as commissioners had input on how those projects were awarded. And so again, I understand that the special projects dollars are no longer ARPA dollars. I get that. I'm pretty smart sometimes. But I do also understand that we as commissioners have to be accountable for these things, and we are donating quite a bit of funds to the West Michigan Sports Commission's campaign, and that is different than a lot of the other projects that we funded. And so that is the part that I am a bit uncertain about, unclear about whether or not I want to support that. And I did vote no to take this out of committee, and I'm still concerned at the moment. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to support it today. Again, not because of the West Michigan Sports Commission's work, but because of the process. And so I just wanted to make that clear and thank all the colleagues that have spoke up about some of those concerns that we have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Others? Commissioner DeBoer.
Thank you, Chair. I understand some of my colleagues' concerns about some of the process. I do, however, think that if we dedicated money towards a project and the project came back with a higher value, it's not necessarily the Sports Commission's fault. And I do think we should hold to our word. If we're going to, allocate funds for a project, we should allocate the funds for a project. So I will be voting in favor of it. But I do also understand some concerns.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stack.
Thank you, Chair Green. So I think that when I look at this, where I start with is these are not ARPA dollars. We know where they came from. We know where we allocated them from. But at the current time, they are not ARPA dollars. They are county dollars. And we made a decision, I think it was last year, to convert them from the ARPA process into the county accounts. And if there was concern about opening ARPA to a full process into the community, that would have been the time to do it. We didn't do that. We put it into our county accounts. Once we have it into the county accounts, we generally don't, from my experience. I think I've been around here as long as, well, maybe Commissioner Ponstein's longer. We don't generally take our various accounts and open it up and say, let's have a wide community bid on what do we want to do with this amount of money. We just don't do that. And having led the ARPA process, I know why we don't do it. It's interesting to say we might have more ideas that come out, but once you open that door, you better be prepared to assess hundreds and hundreds if you want to be open and fair and say, we're going to make everybody available to see whether or not they can make a better case for this money than this. I would not be ready to do that. The cost to staff, the cost to us, the political, the emotional cost of doing that is significant. And if you've gone through it, you have some sense about how much that takes. So what's being proposed here is the use of the funds that's totally appropriate within the county's utilization of its money. It is a strong partner of ours. It has been a partner of ours. And so to use it to support a partner who has a particular need on a project we've already invested significantly in to make sure it gets over the finish line is as appropriate a use as I can imagine for the funds. Now, can I concoct other things we could do with it? Absolutely. But it's a totally appropriate utilization of these funds, and I think it's done in an appropriate way. These are not ARPA dollars. No one here really, if you think about it, wants to go through that process again for $400,000. I will support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Steck. We've got 2 requests for a second. Does anybody else have a first comment before I move to second? Okay. Commissioner LeGrand and then Womack.
Thank you, Chair. So I have been confused since the beginning of this, I think because of how it was written, because it was written as a request for a donation to a campaign. And in conversation as well as in the action request, it was not clear that this money is specifically the amount of the overrun for the project that we initially approved, which I think would have been very helpful to know. I would also just like to ask, is there, how much, is that 417, is that the total amount of not spent ARPA dollars?
It's the total amount currently of not spent or contracted for projects.
Like
I mean, there are some other projects that are unfinished at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess because I was part of giving out that ARPA money, and I know that we held back money for projects that did have overruns. I can see the logic in spending the money this way because it is an overrun on a specific project that we specifically approved. So that makes sense. But I have a little bit of a struggle with this logic of the child of the county because I don't know if this child of the county, are we supporting this child in perpetuity? You know, we've done all these nice things like sell it real estate at what's obviously below market value. Or is it a constant donation thing, or do we expect this child to grow up at some point? We give it quite a bit of money from Experience GR and or Hotel Motel. So my question is this just an ongoing thing and we're going to find different ways to do it?
This child's graduating from college.
Is it?
No.
Are we going to buy it a
I'm
car?
sorry. I think that as you,
I have a different opinion.
I don't know what the future holds. There are no current plans to fund anything more with the Sports Commission. But as we've seen, 4 or 5 years could go by and then there could be another request. So I don't know what the future holds, but I can tell you there's no current plans.
Okay. Well, I agree that I think what I really would like to know, and maybe in the future, is just the following these ARPA dollars, because I feel like that was very quiet. And for those of us, it was such a public process, and to know that money has come back and has gone elsewhere, I don't know if there's just some way we can track that for commissioners, because I think that would be reasonable for us to know. But given that this is a project that we approved and it's an overrun for the specific project, then I will vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Womack.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly appreciate the wordy, loquacious vernacular of Attorney Steck, but I'd have to take a question to staff. Once Attorney Steck, Commissioner Steck to be exact, said that I voted on the opera funds myself and some of the allocation, and this was federal money. But as Attorney Steck said, or Commissioner Steck said, that once the federal government gives us money and we put it into that pocket, it's now county money. Will we also say that when it comes to DEI programs and things that we fund with DNI, that once the federal government gave it to us in today's atmosphere, will we be able to say, hey, this is county money, and we don't have to worry about the big brother over our shoulder, that when they give us money, is earmarked most of it, and they have directives that we seem to have to follow. Is that something we could talk about?
Yes,
since that
sure.
came up about federal money becoming county money?
No, it's a good question. I understand it. I think that most grant programs come with their own set of criteria, and the ARPA money It was regular. Jeff, I don't know if we had 100, 200 different missives from the U.S. Department of Treasury with changing guidelines and rules throughout this entire process, prior to, during, and even after. And so this money was treated differently because of those rules. And then also, as I said earlier, because of the threats that came with different periods of time about taking money back, and so the county took different steps to protect that money and make it county money so it couldn't be. In general, what we're finding, even with executive orders today, is that once the money is in the hand of the state or the counties, that it stays there, but it's an annual allocation. So we already know of some funding that won't be in next year's budget for the feds. And so it's like that starts all over again. It's like Groundhog Day. So just because they gave it to us this year and we were able to secure it and protect it, the rules can change for next year's allocation. So there may not be an allocation of certain funds next year, or there could be dramatically changed rules if there is an allocation next year. So to answer your question, any money we've gotten for, say, Welcome Plan or other areas of the county is that annual allocation. And so we won't have a stockpile of those funds necessarily. There are a couple grant-funded programs at the county. I'm speaking with a bit of a broad brush because we get about $65 million in federal funding, and it's several different programs that have different rules. So there may be one or two that have some allowed buildup of some funds that we can spend out. But in most cases, we're kind of on an annual year-to-year allocation and spend requirement.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to find out in layman terms, when we speak about once it becomes county money, that we can do what we want. It's like, with our appreciation to our taxpayers when it's coming in as county, when we bringing in state funding, when we're bringing in federal funding, and we know there's gonna be some different cuts and some things moved around because of what we're hearing from the federal. I just felt that was a open statement that I need some clarity on, because we're gonna be going through a lot of funding throughout the year and questions. So I really just wanted in layman terms about that statement.
That's good.
Federal funding.
And we
and
have
becoming county money.
We have created a resource that we think will be helpful. So when we got that initial executive order that was a bit of a shocker that said we could lose all of our federal funding the next day, the staff put together that summary of all federal funding, and we will keep updating that as we get new information through the federal budget process, through executive orders, whatever that may be, so that we can keep you as up to date as we are on the status of all those different federal funded programs.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to apologize, Mike, to the commission that, as our chair eloquently said, this is nothing personal with the Sports Commission. Our vice chair, minority chair said, we really appreciate everything you do. And this is one of the first times we went into that to allocate some funds, so we just had some housekeeping to do.
Understood. I would just, from my perspective, say too that ARPA was a once in a generation or two act by the federal government. Hopefully we're not going down that road again. So I would just caution us from drawing comparisons between the American Rescue Plan Act and other grant funding that comes to the county, on a more regular routine basis. Commissioner Hildebrand.
Thank you, Chair Green. I didn't mean to belabor this a little bit, but I am. I just wanted to add my words that, I support the resolution. The West Michigan Sports Commission found themselves in a little difficult situation. They made the case to the administration about trying to find some financial support. These funds were identified and they were selected and brought forward, so I support that. But I did want to put a plug in for the 14% that's left. In my district, we have the Kent County Youth Fairgrounds, which was an ARPA-funded organization, and they have lots of needs still. So as we talk about the 14% that's left, I'm going to put a plug in to support the Kent County Youth Fairgrounds going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hildebrand. Commissioner Stack for a second.
That was out of order, Commissioner, but just to clarify my comment, when these funds came in as ARPA funds, they had this full set of ARPA restrictions and reporting obligations and what have you. One of the uses that was available to it was for revenue replacement, to come back into the county. And I believe what we did at that point was to identify this as revenue replacement dollars. They'd lost their ARPA reporting obligations. They become county dollars available for us to use consistent with the county rules, regulations, restrictions. And that's what this money is.
Thank you. Commissioner Pakla for a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Al, we heard, I think at the Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday, that we've started collecting the 3% increase in the lodging and excise tax. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do we have any sense of what the current estimated fund balance, for lack of a better term, uncommitted dollars are currently in that fund or might be projected in that fund? Are we on track for the numbers that we saw last year when we started seeing that? Because I recall that we had a little bit of fund balance that we were anticipating that was uncommitted, that we were planning to carry through in case of the need for it. I don't know if that's a Jeff question, or I know Josh was the one that prepared that
I
document.
know we're on track, because Jeff and I talked about that last week, but as far as the amount of a projected fund balance, that I don't have with me.
Good morning. So that's a complicated question because there's so many moving parts. The city sold bonds yesterday for the amphitheater and the soccer stadium, which we're funding with the 3%. So I haven't seen those final debt statements yet. So we have to track that. We have to track the deposits from the CEA to go to the city for the reserve funds. There's a lot of moving parts yet, so I can't say accurately what the fund balance is going to be by the end of the fiscal year, because that first debt payment, I think, is a little sooner than we anticipated also. We're still on track with what we budgeted, though, a year ago, so.
Okay,
yes.
and am I correct in recalling that we are planning to pre-fund an account for like 1.5 years worth of debt service? Is that what we were planning to do with that? I'm trying to remember, because we had a fairly substantial amount of the lodging and excise tax that we were planning to come in that wasn't immediately required for the bond payments. Is that correct?
Well, we started collections January 1st of the 3%, so we need to build that up. I believe the first bond payment is going to be this October 1st, and it's an interest-only payment. So, and I believe it's about $2.5 million. Again, these are old schedules that I saw. So we need to build up that, and then we need to pay experience grant ARPAs out of that as well. So, and then our administrative costs. So there's too many moving parts right now to tell you where that fund balance is going to end up. The CA is going to give us a deposit, which is going to go over to the city, and they're going to hold that in a bond reserve account. I think that might be the 1.5 times you're talking about, and that will stay with them as an extra protection for their bond payments. So.
Okay. I think that's helpful. And I think what I'm getting at, right, is the question that Commissioner Faber brought up, which is that when we went through the process last year of increasing the lodging and excise tax, sports complexes are specifically called out as an eligible use there. And my preference would be that when we have restricted use accounts like the lodging and excise tax, that we are maximizing the use of those for allowable reasons, rather than using more generalized accounts. Because, one of the things that I did was I pulled up our capital improvement plan recommendations from the CIPRT, and we have a number of recommendations. If these truly are county funds that were used as revenue replacement that have all of the restrictions of ARPA removed from them, we have a number of projects in that capital improvement plan that were requested that were not funded. We have pavement replacement at Millennium Park Trails. We have Johnson Park's historic shelter relocation. We have the jail kitchen and Sallyport floor improvements. We have security barricades. These are all things that, in theory, if I'm understanding this correctly, would be eligible for these funds to be allocated for their use. And we have other potential sources that we could be exhausting before we would go to these funds for the West Michigan Sports Commission and for the complex that's there. And we're not doing that. And that, I think, is the core of the struggle that I'm having is, on one hand, we are saying we don't have enough money to fund these requests that come through. On the other hand, we're saying we're going to use the unrestricted dollars that we have to fund a totally separate request than what came in through the capital improvement plan. So I think that's where I'm, I don't know that there's necessarily a response to that question, but I think that's where my struggle with this conversation is coming and where I'm opposed to this conversation.
Thank you, Commissioner. You brought it back home. I was going to give some comments about, let's just try to keep on the question at hand. I appreciate you bringing it back around, but if we can keep it narrow to this, that'd be great. Commissioner Kallman for a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is maybe slightly less narrow than you'd desire, but I do think it's important, given, that not everyone was, involved in the process with, the original ARPA allocations, to just recall how substantially more collaborative Kent County was with the community than any other municipality. As I recollect, it was over 90% of the 138 million or so, I think, that we were allocated, that was part of this collaborative process. You look at the other municipalities within Kent County, City of Grand Rapids, I think, got 97 million in ARPA dollars, and it was less than 15% was part of a collaborative process. City of Wyoming, I think, got $36 million. I don't recall that they had any particular collaborative process with the community at all. And we could go down the list, to all the cities, all the townships and their allocations of dollars. So I do think it's important, like, as we're looking at this 358,000 that's now in the county coffers, that we don't lose sight of how substantially more collaborative Kent County's process was with ARPA allocation than any other municipality in the area.
Thank you. Commissioner Kallman. Commissioner Bujak for first.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of the key words that Al mentioned this morning was investment. And we could allocate this funding to many, many causes, but there's not many causes that will actually generate in our community a payback. And I think that this investment in the sports complex will generate, millions of dollars in the long term. So I'm supportive of it, and I just wanted to make sure that, we're in our discussion looking at this as an investment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? I will briefly say, I'm really supportive of the idea of giving this funding to the Sports Commission. They're a known partner. We've gone through that. I think the return on investment from the Sports Commission for the limited dollars that we invest over the years has been spectacular. The child is growing and is grown. I don't know that I think it's very wise for us to continue investing in it when appropriate. So I appreciate the work that's been done there and the great stuff that's being accomplished. I just wanted to add that, this came before Finance over a month ago. And in that time period, the only other suggestion that we heard from anybody, including the commissioners, was just about 10 minutes ago from Hildebrand on funding the fair. So I would say that there has been opportunity for discussion on this. We've had it for 5 or 6 weeks. We've had communication with members of the Finance Committee and with the board at large. So I understand the frustration a little bit, but I also would say that we haven't had much feedback on what other ideas might be out there. So I appreciate it. I understand the frustration, but this certainly wasn't an attempt to pull an end around, or certainly not to make the Sports Commission a political football, which it feels a little bit like today, and that's unfortunate. That was no pun intended, actually. So political baseball, maybe. So anyway, I appreciate the discussion today. We're always looking for ways to improve our communication process, but I think this is a great investment for us to make. So seeing no other discussion, I will ask Madam Clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 35, Commissioners Morse.
Yes.
Merchant. Yes. DeBoer.
Yes.
Hildenbrand.
Yes.
Steck.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Vice Chair Burrow.
Yes.
Commissioners Kallman.
Yes.
Halsted.
Yes.
Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
No.
McLeod.
No.
Hennessy. Oliver King.
No.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Faber. Pakla.
No.
Morales. Bujak. Chair Green.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 14 yeas, 6 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 35 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will move on to agenda item 7E. And I will call on, is that right, Commissioner Burrow?
I guess so. Thank you, Chair Green.
I think Commissioner Steck moved it out of the
All right.
Standing Rules Committee, so I think I'll call on Commissioner Steck instead of Vice Chair Burrow, if you're not
No
offended.
problem.
Okay,
I'm
all
all set
right.
either way.
Commissioner Steck.
I lost my agenda. I think we're up to rules. I move approval of the standing rules recommended from the Standing Rules Committee.
Thank you. Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Pakla. I'm going to ask, we had a few, I would say, non-substantive changes this morning when the Standing Rules Committee met to, just to send these up for recommendation. So I just would like for Linda to give a brief review on those few changes, and then we'll have discussion on what's left.
Good morning. The 3 sheets that were passed out this morning are the pages on which changes from this morning's discussion are shown. And in summary, all 3 changes basically take edits that were discussed and undo them, and leaving all the annexation issues with the executive committee as opposed to moving it to the ops committee. So on the first page of the handout this morning, you'll see a blue strike through. That was from the ops committee, which was put in and now is being taken back out. Same on the second page, you'll see a blue strike through. And then on the third page, you'll see under executive committee will, on paragraph 5, that's the original language that in your prior draft was stricken out and now is being put back in. So in other words, the only thing that's changed from the drafts you've seen in total is leaving annexation with the exec committee as opposed to moving it to ops.
Thank you. Questions, comments, discussion on standing rules? Anyone? Commissioner Faber.
Just a note of gratitude for the committee for doing this hard work. I know you met more than you wanted to and got into the weeds more than you intended. And so I just really appreciate the way that you solicited feedback and how commissioners can see that feedback reflected in these standing rules. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Pakla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll echo the appreciation to my colleagues on the Standing Rules Committee. I think we had a lot of great substantive conversation. In the end, a lot of what we did was cleanup of the standing rules. We had a couple of clarifications of what the responsibilities were of various appointment processes and what the chair's responsibilities were as far as referring villages. That I think was all extremely non-contentious work, which I really appreciate. I will note one thing on the most recent version of the edits. It appears as though we have an unintended carriage return that occurred on sub-bullet B, or number 2 on page 32. So we have added an extra number into the numeration. So we might want to get that cleaned up before, as a friendly amendment to that.
I love some grammar and editing, but carriage return is one that's not in my regular parlance. Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair Green. Again, I will also thank you and my colleagues for the great conversations we had in the meetings in order to get through a set of rules that I think were intended and are to be rules that are even balanced for this board. And not giving one party a prevalence over another. It is really even. So I appreciate that. Really, Chair Green, to put Commissioner Pakla on to catch the kinds of things that he reflected this morning was genius. So it's been great working with you guys.
Yeah, that affirms the choice there, so thank you, Chris. Anyone else? Commissioner Bujak.
Thank you, Chair. I work for GE Aviation in a department called the Change Management Organization, and our job was to process change orders every day, hundreds of them. And when I looked at the significance of the changes that occurred to this document, I recognized the amount of work that actually went into this particular effort, and I really appreciate the work that this team has done to bring this document back to us with these significant changes that will help us all benefit from. having a document that accurately represents, us as a county commission. And I would like to say that this probably won't be the last time that we see this document come back to us for change. It is a document that is alive and will continue to be monitored. And as changes are deemed necessary, I'm sure that, our team will look at that and bring forward, any other changes that might be an improvement and necessary. So thank you for the team that put this together. And I recognize the hard work that's gone into this, and I will be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I should have added too on the introduction before we had Linda focus on the substantive changes. One thing that we did build into this process this year is that we will be considering just an assessment on the 3 standing committee structure. The Standing Rules Committee is going to reconvene more than likely sometime in December or November, and then consider, evaluate, and if necessary, present recommendation or lack thereof back to the Board of Commissioners. So we did a lot of cleanup on that kind of stuff, working through the stuff that we did last year. We didn't think it fair to give an honest assessment of how that's working after, we've only had a couple of 2-3 meetings for most of the standing committee. So we will be revisiting that piece at least, and we'll stay tuned. So I would also say if there's pieces in the rules or pieces in the committee process that you find are great or not so great, please share them with myself, Linda, Al, Chris, and Stan and Robin as members of the committee. So appreciate that. Anybody else? Okay. I would just also like to offer my thanks to the Standing Rules Committee, Commissioners Halstead, Pakla, and Steck. I don't know how many years in a row Steck's been on Standing Rules now. He's going to go for a record with that one if we keep him around there any longer. But thank you guys for the work that you put in. I'd also like to thank Linda, Hillary, Sandra, Taylor, and Lisa, and everybody else that had a hand in preparing these documents. We sit there and say, go back and forth for 20 minutes and then look at Linda and say, you got all that? And typically Linda got all that. So we appreciate that and appreciate the work that goes into it. With that, I will ask Madam Clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 36, Commissioners Morse?
Yes.
Merchant? Yes. DeBoer? Hildenbrand?
Yes.
Steck?
Yes.
Pottenstein? Yes. Vice Chair Burrow?
Yes.
Commissioners Coleman?
Yes.
Halsted?
Yes.
Teal?
Yes.
Sparks? McLeod?
Yes.
Hennessy? Oliver King?
Yes.
LeGrand?
Yes.
Womack?
Yes.
Faber? Pakla?
Yes.
Morales?
Yes.
Bujak?
Yes.
Chair Green?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 36 is adopted.
Thank you. We will move on to agenda item number 8, which is public comment related to general county matters. Welcome back, Dee. Please, you don't need to state your name. You did it earlier. You have up to 3 minutes.
Say my address. I tell you my address boldly. 967 Tamarack Avenue. I ain't scared. You could come find me for sure. Anything I said in public, y'all could come find me. How y'all doing, though? I'm doing good. I just want to speak on a couple things. Yesterday, I was out there speaking on the Leoya case. As y'all know, I was on CNN, one of the bold people that stood up for the community injustice in the shooting and killing of Patrick, and my cousin also got killed by a state police officer in Illinois. As you guys know, I'm from Chicago, and I'm going to continuously speak out about that injustice. I'm not going to apologize for anything that I said to those Proud Boys, because I let them and educated those Proud Boys that y'all stole our history. Y'all stole black history, and what are you so proud of? You don't want to go to Africa with that proudful stuff. You just don't want to. I told him that his genitals a little everything. I don't care. You don't want to go to Africa with that stuff, do you? No. Everybody gets what I'm saying. I don't care to hurt people's pride, their feelings and stuff on that, because the pain and suffering of the black community, communities of color, y'all got the customs outside of the DeVos place. What is the U.S. Customs doing around here at the DeVos place? I know that Dick DeVos is one of the powerfulest people around here that's controlling, that's poured funding, the billions that they poured into the funding to have the state house, to block legislation to change our community. I'm sick of this. I'm going to keep speaking out about this so boldly because I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the injustice. Why is it? Because I have the hospitality, I'm not going to speak on this other thing because I've made a promise, and I'm a man of my word, so I ain't going to speak on that issue here. But I'm so sick of y'all racism. I'm so sick of people just thinking that racism is okay, that we not going to stand up to this. Dude, I've been in the streets for real. I didn't have to defend people and fought people and knock people out in these streets because I had to defend people, to stop people. I don't care to say that because I had to defend people. And I will continuously defend people. I'm really from the streets, from the trenches. Y'all will never play me stupid. Because I really stood up for this community, for the injustice, no politician. Because I really stood up so passionately that you can see it on the news, my passion and love for this community, for change, for social justice, for equity. Because y'all continuously fund this. Now that y'all see the federal government, Donald Trump don't care about you. A two-faced Gemini. Just being so fake. To y'all too. To y'all party. That ain't what Gerald R. Ford stood up for. Because my birthday is a couple days after, and I know I'd have a great conversation with him. If he was alive. I know this ain't the Republican values or the Democratic values. Y'all need to grow some coochie hair and some balls hair and stand up for the fucking people. Excuse my language. Excuse my passion. But I'm sick of this. I'm sick of y'all not standing up. I'm sick of the injustice. I'm sick of the inequity. I'm going to change the economy alone. With no politicians' help or with y'all help. I'm going to do this. I'm gone.
Thank you. D, next time if there's language like that, I'm going to have to tell you to leave the stand, so. Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Okay. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 9, Administrator's Report.
I just have a couple quick items today. You may see a number of new faces around the building this week. Due to some room mix-ups across the street, we ended up allowing the National Assessors Association to use our facility for their national conference. So it's really kind of a cool thing. Our equalization department and our local assessors have partnered in the past to bring trainers from the national events here so that locals who maybe can't afford to attend the national events can get the same quality training. And now this week they're in our building. They're actually quite a reserved group, as you might imagine. And then secondly, just wanted to mention that we are having some parking difficulties in the convention center ramp across the street. With Lion Street closed down, that project should be finished by somewhere in July. But then also with a very busy convention schedule this summer, we're finding employees are facing delays of anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour getting out of the ramp. So I have asked the city to co-convene a group of the convention center, the city, the county, to work through these issues as rapidly as we can, because it just isn't, that isn't a good end to your day. So we are working on that. If you hear anything, and if you should experience something, it's probably mostly at the end of the day. Sometimes in the morning as people are trying to get in, but mostly towards the end of the day. So.
All right. Thank you, Al. Move on to agenda item number 10, reports. Are there any reports from commissioners? Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. The Ready by 5 Early Childhood Millage is getting ready to kick off here in about 15 minutes. So Commissioner Morris and I do serve on that committee, and we look forward to making sure that our kiddos age 0 to 5 are ready for kindergarten and to serve the parents and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for reports? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 10, miscellaneous. Are there any miscellaneous items today? Commissioner Ponstein. I think your mic's off, Commissioner, if you want to flip that on. Thank you.
I find it funny with the problems with parking. I guess one solution would be if they're waiting that long to get in and out, they shouldn't be charged to park there then. So maybe that's something City of Grand Rapids can look at. A couple things that struck me just listening to the comments of I think I heard when we were talking about the Sports Commission and, the hotel motel tax, and there might be a potential of a little cushion there that could be spent other words. And then I also heard that the first bond payment that's going to be made in October is an interest-only bond payment. I think people that have been on the commission a little longer have heard me on my views of bonds. You've obviously heard from Reverend Daniel Scott about the evils of debt, but if there's any type of surplus, it shouldn't be spent anywhere except paying that debt down, so no one else is obligated to pay that besides the hotel motel tax. And then the other thing I just want to add, the ARPA funding. Yeah, it was an interesting time, and I think one thing we worked through and maybe even learned is that there are a lot of areas in this county that are lacking, they're of need, and things that we can do better. I don't know how that money's gonna be spent, but the gaps we found in services should be a role of our regular general budget. We have to constantly review of old things that we've done versus new needs that have came across the horizon. So I would just hope all members and commissioners would keep that in mind, that we still have a lot of gaps in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for miscellaneous? Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I believe this is my first time in 5 years of speaking during miscellaneous. But I've heard a lot of complaints about the ARPA process today, and I don't feel that way about it at all. For me, it was a really great experience, and I think that it was unusual to have the public so involved, but I think it really held us accountable and made us consider a lot of things we wouldn't have otherwise considered. And I don't think that a lot of transparency is a bad thing. So I'm really proud of what we accomplished, and I'm really grateful to the county for making sure we've got our claws into all that money, because we've made really great investments. So, you know, it was hard. It involved a lot of publicity, which maybe not all of us enjoyed, but I do think it was a good process, and I'm proud of how the county handled it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. I will just say that we're looking forward to the agribusiness tour today. I know Commissioner Morse did a lot of work putting that together, so thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to agenda item 12. I will call on Commissioner Ponstein for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Chair Green. I move to adjourn subject to the chair, Thursday, May 22nd, 2025, 8:30 a.m. Official meeting of the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you. Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Teal. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.